talk today about one of the three companies I own. This is Kalscott Engineering, probably the best kept secret in Kansas, at least in the drone industry in Kansas. So we're based in Lawrence, Kansas, and we were formed in 2002, sitting in my living room, basically. What we are is a group of engineers. Our backgrounds are mostly in aerospace, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. And my passion always has been anything that has to do with flying. So when we decided to start this company, the co-owner and myself, we sat wondering, well, what should we work on? We had already worked about 10 years together, and we had done a bunch of stuff in the aero and defense industry already. We said, well, what should we work on? And we said, well, let's try to work on unmanned aircraft for about a year, and then see if it pans out. If it pans out, we'll stick with it. If not, we'll go and do something else. And we got our first contract with the Navy in about 3 months, and we never looked back since then. So what we do is we're focused on early stage research, development, and testing in the aero and defense industry. We have two sister companies called Aerometrics and Intellispeed, and I can talk about those a little bit later. And like I said, we've got about 20 years plus in the aero and defense industries. And our main area of focus is unmanned aircraft. Anything to do with unmanned aircraft, whether it's the design of these things, whether it's the flying of these things, whether it's the payloads that go on these things, and weird new uses for these things. We've touched all those aspects in the last few years. And we do quite a bit of custom payload design for a variety of missions. And we do the design, development, and testing for those. And recently we've also gotten involved in what can you do with this data. You collect tons of data, how are you going to process it and give it to an end user so it's actually usable and actionable intelligence for them. So we begin to do quite a bit of that. Okay, and the sort of business verticals that we see ourselves in the defense industry, what we usually do is product development for specific customers. In what I would call broadly the aeronautics field, we don't do any space-related stuff. It's almost all airplane-related stuff. We try to work on new designs, new concepts that are probably 5-10 years out into the future. Then we're doing quite a bit of work in the science missions. So this is flying payloads, missions that are related to mostly global climate change, and we're doing quite a bit of that for federal and university customers. And then there's this kind of catch-all civilian applications that we see sort of emerging now, where a lot of it is going to be the data. What do you do with the data from these things? If you're getting pictures, if you're getting like a stream of radio information, if you're getting a stream of numbers, basically, right? How do you process these things and turn them into usable data? Mostly that can be accessed in a distributed manner. So on the internet, websites, or apps on your phone. So as far as the government clients go, these are our big ones. We work for literally, I would say, every federal agency that has something to do with drones. We work for them. A lot of the stuff we do is on the defense side is classified, so I won't talk about those. I should say a significant portion of it, but I can talk about the civilian applications for that we do for NOAA or NSF. And I told you we had a couple of spin-off companies, and one of the spin-off companies has to do with taking the technology that's inside the drone and using it for other purposes. And some of the more compelling purposes that we've seen is in the medical industry. And now we have some applications in the medical world where we're using basically what started off with drone technology and piping it into that. And for that we have funding from NIH and the CEC. We've collaborated a lot with the industry. We are a very, very small company. There's only 4 of us in Lawrence, and we've got a whole bunch of subcontractors all over the place and consultants. And in many cases, what happens is that we work on a project and we have to hand it off to somebody else to actually take out into the real world. And some of these companies are very, very large. These are like the top 10 defense contractors in the US. We've had, and over the last 10 years, we've worked with all of them on a regular basis. We do a lot of, like I said, we have a lot of subcontractors and consultants. A lot of the work we do is very, very high-end engineering work, very high-end design work, and in many cases, we ourselves don't have the capability of doing everything. There's some stuff that we have to go work with universities. And most of the universities that we work with are ones that have come recommended by certain federal agencies for certain aspects of our work. The Stanfords, the Berkeleys, the folks from Princeton were here actually yesterday, and the day, actually the last couple of weeks, where we've been flying in Lawrence. And then some of the state universities as well. Some of our medical work is, we're collaborating with KUMN on that. The UAV industry trends is what everybody likes to talk about these days. When we first started this, if you looked in the newspaper, if you looked online, back in 2001, 2002, you'd be lucky to find one drone-related news story every month. Now, every day, there will be at least 5 that you'll see on the top Yahoo or Google pages. So this thing has just exploded. And I think a lot of this has happened because of, one, the war effort, and the second thing is all the commercial applications and civilian applications that people are beginning to see now. So I've given this a little bit of thought and said, why now suddenly are civilian applications becoming viable? And there's some pretty interesting reasons, I think. And right now you can go and buy, after I'm done here, you could drive down to Kansas City and buy a drone if you wanted from a hobby store on Metcalf. And you can be flying by 12 noon if you wanted today and getting video done. And the reason this has happened, I think, is primarily because the size, weight, and power and cost of a lot of the components that go into these drones have just plummeted because people have been able to take components that have been devised for other industries. So, for example, the autopilots that used to cost hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars are now of the order of, they're under $100 now. And the reason is because the little tiny sensors that go inside the autopilot are the ones that are used in airbags that cost about a few cents each. So a lot of what's happened in the consumer electronics industry has driven down the complexity and the cost of these things. When we first started, we looked at this and said, we don't think the cost is ever going to come down on these things, but mostly because of the war effort the last 5-6 years, some of those costs and the complexities have just been driven down. So it's now a lot of this is open source. And that's another huge thing that's happened. So now the question becomes, how do you make money on these things, right? It's all open source. how are you going to make money on it? But my prediction is drone is going to become the cell phone of the next decade. You talk about selfies now. I can give you a drone now. So here's some of the sorts of things that we've done over the last few years. This is work that we've done for the Navy, the Air Force, for DARPA. A lot of it is surveillance related stuff. We're looking for pictures, we're looking for images, we're chasing vehicles, we're looking at, we're listening to things that people are talking, blah, blah, blah. This is, kind of, we used to do a lot of this kind of stuff, but we see a lot of that beginning to trend down with the water slowly trending down as well. We have our own aircraft. It's a Cessna 210 that we have out here at the Lawrence Airport. We fly fairly regularly. And if you look over here, well, this is a really, really expensive camera that the Navy gave us to fly. This is probably like a $250,000 to $500,000 camera. With that, from several miles away, you can begin to get very usable imagery in real time, basically. Some of the work we did here was transition into, the predators, the global hawks, by some of our industry collaborators. We do a bunch of airborne science missions for NOAA and for NASA and NSF. Where what we're trying to do is get real-time or near real-time information about the composition of the atmosphere, so various gases that are present, what concentrations are they present at what altitudes. And this all feeds into the models that NOAA and the other folks run to make predictions on climate change, basically. So we're doing quite a bit of that. The one that we're working on right now is a balloon-launched UAV. So it launches on a helium balloon, goes up to about 100,000 feet, and there the balloon pops. And one of these vehicles, we don't know which one it's going to be, opens up and carries the payload back to where you launched from, or very close to where you launched from. And the reason is you want, and I've done this myself, you have, if the balloon decides to land wherever it wants to, it could be tens of miles, if not over 100 miles away. You have to go search for this thing. And usually there's a beach in the middle of some place you don't want to be. So this allows you to bring it back safely to a place that you can easily recover. Then we do some kind of strange stuff from time to time. And this is usually in support of some project that we are thinking about, whether it's launching one UAV from another UAV, like in these two cases. This one is we're using multiple UAVs to launch a third UAV. Doing this is not trivial by any means. So it takes a lot of effort and thinking to coordinate everything and make it all work. But it's all in the day's work. Here are some of the sort of emerging opportunities that we're beginning to see for the drones and the data that they produce and the data that they can produce. This is actually somebody else's data, but just to give you an example, for example, you could fly over a quarry or a landfill, for example, and say, this is the volume of dirt that was removed in the last 1 month, or this is the size of the stockpile of material that you've got here, or this is the amount of CO2 and carbon dioxide and methane emissions from a landfill. And the reason you can do this is you can now get these small drones that can fly very, very close to the ground. There's lots of limitations on these things, but when the regulations finally are in place, the technology is already there to do this. You can fly very low, so your sensors end up being very cheap. these are photos that were taken literally with a camera that you can buy at Walmart. Or if you had a GoPro, even better, you know. But you put it on the little drone, such as that, and you fly around, and you get all these images basically, and there's software to stitch these images and get all the geographical information that you need from these images. Let's see. Here, this is just pictures that we happened to take, you know, flying when we were doing other stuff. Right, but as you can see, you can. I haven't zoomed in on these things. This is just raw imagery, but if you wanted to, you can get some very, very detailed pictures with just cheap cameras and a cheap drone. What would be base? Let me. Here's another one that we're just beginning to talk about. This is from the USGS. Can you count wildlife? Right? And here is imagery that we took when we were doing some Navy missions. We were running around looking for other things. And hey presto, you know, these whales suddenly show up. And a couple of days later, the pod of dolphins shows up. Then we just happened to be around and said, hey, they're there. You know, might have to take pictures. But we got some really good imagery from these things. You can see the calves, you know, running around. Anyway, but so yeah, you could do animal counts, for example. And obviously, you know, the commercial application would be, this would be sort of a, I would say a civilian government application, but the commercial application might be if you wanted to count a herd of, you got a herd of 10,000 cows, spread out over 20,000 acres, you can probably do that in a couple of hours, completely automated. So there's all these new. I think what's going to happen is kind of what's happened in the cell phone industry is you give cheap cell phones to a bunch of people, and all the people, if you can, give them 2 cell phones, right, and just sit back and see what happens. What happens is Facebook and Twitter. What happens is millions of apps that can be downloaded from either the iTunes Store or the Google Play Store. That's what happens when you. It's some. I guess it's like democratization of science. Once you make things really cheap and, you know, readily available, people will go out and do just fantastic things with these things. And somewhere there's money to be made. Money will be made. Which is why the Facebooks and the Googles of the world and the Amazons of the world are running around buying small drone companies. Yeah, because they see that this is going to be the next way. You're going to pump internet to people, you're going to collect data, you're going to distribute data. So definitely they see the light at the end of the tunnel for something. And, you know, that helps companies like us too, because it promotes us. And we do quite a bit of stuff with STEM stuff is something that's very near and dear to my heart. You know, we try to help kids in schools all the time. This is a kid that I just helped, Paul, from Lawrence High School, that's doing very well in building little model aircraft now, and he's done a little bit of drone stuff. He's flown quadcopters. And this is a group out of Kansas City that's working on building electric cars. So they take these really nice cars that have been abandoned and rip the innards out and put in these lovely electric propulsion systems. Beautiful work. And really amazing group of kids and their mentors. And that kind of concludes my talk, I guess. And this is me. If you wanted to contact me, I've got just a few cards over there. I've got a little drone that, like I said, you can run down to Hobby Haven on Metcalf and buy today if you wanted to. And if you guys have the stomach for it, and if I have the stomach for it, I'll fly it in here. But,
do it.
But we'll wait and see. Yeah.
This is when you the FAA.
Yeah, we will be breaking an FAA rule as questions to you.
Let's shut off the camera.
Yeah, I had asked if we could go offline when we did that.
That's awesome.
I'm amazed that you can do all of this with just a staff of 4 people. And I'm wondering, can you explain some of the challenges of federal contracts? And if you have one person that specializes in that?
That'd be me, I guess. I did my first federal contract when I came here to KU. I was 22 years old, fresh off the boat, never touched a computer in my life. And my advisor said, I want you to produce this by Friday, 5 o'clock. And it was already Wednesday or something. So yeah, I did work on it and sent it off, and 6 months later, the Pentagon had picked up some of the work the proposal that I had. So yes, I've done federal contracts. If anybody has any questions, I've done this for 20 years. I know the ins and outs, and they get to be a little difficult, right? And one of the challenges that we are seeing is because of the war effort, they've all been really behind on their auditing work. So now they're coming back and asking us about contracts that had finished about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we're having to pick up all the paperwork. So that's the flip side of it. But some of them can be very, very unique and interesting projects.
I'm curious. There's this thing going on in the air. On one hand, you've got general aviation pilots are scared to death of drones because we can't see them,
right,
and we don't know we're there. And as a result of our fear, the FAA is saying, okay, you guys are proposing now, if my information is correct, you can fly these things, but only if you can see them, which kind of defeats a lot of the purpose of being able to fully utilize drone technology. So where's the happy ground that makes pilots happy, that we can know where they are, and the FAA's happy because they have the warm fuzzies that they know where they are? What has to happen for that to come together?
I think the regulations have to be put in place. That's basically what has to happen. What the FAA has done is basically shut all these all commercial operators down with very sort of blanket regulation at this point. And then they're slowly opening up the faucets one by one and saying, if you want to fly this particular drone in this particular place on this particular day for this particular mission, we let you do it. It's going to cost you 6 months of your time in waiting as we process the paperwork. If you're willing to wait, it's possible to do this. The biggest problem, and I think they had presented a few weeks here, is being able to see and avoid the drones, right? And also the drones being able to see and avoid other traffic that might be out there. It's a very, very tough engineering problem to solve. But it will be solved. There's no question about it.
Just not.
It's just not right. We may not be able to do it, but Google will do it for us, right? Or Facebook will do it for us. Or somebody that has a huge fleet of these things, right? Is going to have to say, this we can provide this amount of safety that's equivalent to a regular commercial aircraft. It will happen. It's just a matter of time, and that's one of the things I'm hoping is you spread these things out, right? And somebody, some bright guy or gal, sitting in a basement is going to solve this problem. It's going to happen. When you've got 1 million people, when you've got 10,000 engineers looking at this, you're able to get a certain number of solutions. When you've got 1 million people looking at it, now you're talking. We've got 10 million people looking at it, even better. It'll happen.
I want to know something about the relationship between the business side and the R&D, And whether you're driven by requirements from government projects or by, this is something, we have an idea how we could do it, who's going to buy it?
Right, and we do both things. Most of the time, I'm out there looking for what does a certain agency want, right? What does a certain customer want? And usually, they publish these things or let it known to the R&D community that these are the sorts of things that you're looking for. And then some other time, you get phone calls saying, hey, can you guys do this? And we go away and think about it for a week and say, we can do 30% of this. And boy, we get some weird requests.
The splitting time between R&D
Yeah,
and
and it becomes very, very difficult. I have to take myself away from the technical side of things, and I have to go do this because that's the way the business has grown. It's by going and finding new customers, new applications, new ways of making money. And for a long time, we stayed with government clients. But now we're beginning to see that, there is light at the end of the tunnel for civilian applications. And in 5 years, those will vastly swarm any government application. So we're beginning to look at certain civilian applications. But
So what does that mean for your company? 10 years from now, are you going to have 20 employees or 100 employees? Are you going to really try to limit growth, look for an exit strategy? And then a corollary to that, why Lawrence? I mean, you started here by happy accident, but what does Lawrence offer you, and what do you see going on in Lawrence that could benefit your company or hurt it?
I think I'm beginning to see, let me answer the second question first. I'm beginning to see a lot of the work that we do can be done anywhere, right? And sometimes I trip and moan about the weather around here because it puts a damper on a lot of things. But we are not hampered in any way doing this over here. If we needed something or we needed somebody, we can always call them and get what we need. So I won't say it's. I'd like to be in, I'd love to be in Arizona where I can fly, 330 days. But so and what was the first question?
Just what the growth of civilian applications means to your company.
I think it's a new type of business that we haven't looked at before. Since we've been small, and kind of very, very selective in the sorts of things that we wanted to do. And the projects that we're working on are kind of unique as well, right? We kind of tended to be small, right? And it's very difficult for us to find the kind of people that we would like to bring on our team. It's very, very, very difficult. We've made offers to people that we liked, and they turned us down because they wanted to go to the West Coast. I said I'll match what Google's paying you, right? But they won't come. They won't stay. On the flip side, well, so I can pick this up though with contractors. It's not such a big. And I think so that was sort of the mentality that we were following was, we can stay small and grow sort of a niche company in this niche business, in this government work. But now people are beginning to call us and say, hey, what about this civilian application? What about that civilian application? We're thinking, if people are beginning to call us, imagine how much more we can do if we actually went out and marketed ourselves. And we're just beginning to talk about that. But we'll see what happens. I'm not opposed to growing or selling them.
So I understand the commercial applications, the ability to survey, delivery, things like that. I'm interested, and I know we kind of touched on this a couple weeks ago. You say this is going to be the next cell phone. Everybody's going to have one or two for personal use. curious what you see the personal applications are for a drone type product. I mean, because maybe it's just the business side of that, you see the commercial side of things and how they can be used in about every industry, but the personal side, I guess I don't see it other than this selfie or the.
Have you seen that ad? I think it's Ford that has this ad that, there's this group of people that want to that are zip lining, I guess. They go to one cliff, I guess, and then they launch a drone that carries the zip line across, and there's a friend waiting for the drone to anchor it over there. Who knows what applications people come up with? I know they've been used for fishing. And believe it or not, we talked about this about 8 years ago. About 10 years ago, we talked about, I wonder if people are eventually going to use this for drug drops. And there was an article a few days ago that's exactly what they were doing. It's dropping drugs and cell phones into prison yards. Hey, everybody's got an application. Everybody's got an application. Come and talk to me about it.
So, I don't think there's a true accelerator program in Kansas anywhere, but we do have what's known as the pipeline program, which instead of accelerating companies, is focused on developing entrepreneurs. I think you're one of our few alumnuses of the program. Can you talk about the pipeline program and what it did for you?
Pipeline is absolutely amazing program. If anybody gets a chance to do it, I think at least you should apply. And going through the application and rejection process itself is probably pretty educational. But the pipeline program is run out of Kansas City, and I think it covers about 4 states right now. And what they do is they select about 12 people from these 4 states to go through a year-long program of basically business training. Really, it's more about business growth, I should say. So their core focus is how you're going to take this business that you have or you've just started to the next level. And in many cases, it is how you're going to go get funding for something like this. So preparing that pitch, getting you to grow a thick skin as you go make these pitches. That's and for me, pipeline was very, very useful because one of the things I was pitching there was the healthcare, the medical company, Intellispeak, the sister company, which we had spun off some stuff from the drone world into kind of a unique application. It's to be able to track people indoors. You may wonder why the heck would you want to track people indoors. The reason I wanted to do it is because I've got 2 children that are autistic, and they wander away all the time, or they used to anyway. And I wanted to know where they were inside, say, a Walmart, for example, or a mall. And now we are able to do that. And it's something that I'm hoping we can push out actually into the open probably next year or so. A lot of technologies have kind of coalesced around that, and I think it's going to happen. But I think the biggest benefit or the biggest use of this probably is going to be in marketing. The hyper-local advertising, that's probably. But again, that's something that came out of pipeline, all these things.
I was just thinking about pipeline inspection or power line inspection.
Oh yeah, a lot of people do that, yeah.
Doing that with airplanes,
Yeah.
they fly too fast and it's dangerous.
Yeah, the nice thing about this is you can go low and slow, right? And you have your $100 camera from one world, right? That's the thing.
Can you see into the ground? What cameras would it take to see
You can get some synthetic aperture radar that can go into the ground. I saw a very interesting article yesterday where they said there's a new kind of LiDAR, not radar, but LiDAR that can actually see into the water, which is unheard of. Now we can track submarines.
Very treasure.
Yeah. Very treasure, sure. They fly magnetic anomaly. We've been asked about flying magnetic anomaly detectors to go look for minerals.
Could you talk about how you decided to kind of quit your old job and embark on this with this partner?
I've always been sort of entrepreneurial bent, I think. Even the first company that I worked for here in Lawrence, we started that up from the ground. I was sitting assembling desks for the first few days of my career, I guess. And I've always been sort of, of an entrepreneurial mindset. And like everybody around here, I did my stint at Sprint. And so I worked there for about a year and a half while I was just shifting gears. And Tom came back and asked me, Tom and I had worked together at this other company for a while. And then Tom came and said, hey, you want to start something again? I said, yeah, sure. Go work on this for a while. But I've always been interested in entrepreneurship, which is why I come here all the time. And frankly, I don't care what the idea is, but I like to listen to what the process was, right? Why did these people decide to do this and not do something else? And how are they doing it? I always get kind of interesting ideas from just listening to people.
As engineering students, we're usually pushed towards going to industry and working there. What advice would you give to students who maybe want to do something different, going to entrepreneurship?
I think it's really a matter of aptitude. If you want to work for somebody else and you're really good at that sort of thing, that's fine. What this has allowed me to do is be very, very independent in almost selecting the sort of work that I wanted to do. I've been very, very, very lucky that I've been able to actually make a living from it. But I think that's the best place to be, is making a living doing what in your mind is fun, right? You have a natural aptitude for this. So really it's a matter of aptitude and what your outlook is, I guess. For a while, I didn't mind working with Sprint. I had a blast. But then after a while, flying the desk was not that, So it's very, very beginning.
Like a drone that could tell me, check and see if I turned off the coffee or is my dog getting in the trash, that kind of a home use drone.
If there's an app already for that, if there's an app that's already available, that you can access on a cell phone or a tablet, you could probably have that next week if you want.
Just sort of a home security kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. We were building an app for something else, and somebody came and asked us, hey, can you use this for a particular application? And 5 days later, I was sending him pictures of what we had taken with that little guy actually. So, and it was flying a little tablet, and it was basically a server in the sky, right?
So besides raising the projector and turning the camera off,